next item on our agenda is Amity High School conversion to natural gas. And Jim Sasha is here, who's the Chief of Operations at the Amity High School, who, oh, here he is. Okay. You want to come up, Jim? And he's going to talk to us a little bit about what the position of Amity has been in terms of converting to natural gas versus having a dual conversion.
Yes.
And so if you could just give us a background on that and your reasons for doing that.
Sure. We're converting everything at Amity High School that's either fuel oil or propane over to natural gas. And we've elected to not go, we're going strictly natural gas. We're not going to have a dual fuel burner system on any of our things there. And all of the people that we've spoken with, you know, the old systems that used to be low pressure gas, you know, there might be some issues in the winter time where you might have low pressure. They might mandate that you, well, they said that they even mandated people to have dual fuel back then because they would let big customers off the lines. Everything we're getting now and all new installations around are high pressure. When I started weighing the numbers for Amity to make recommendations to the board as to what we should do, we looked at the cost of maintaining oil tanks, such as all of the filing. This is what we have to do with the state and all of the inspections that we have to do. With natural gas boilers only, we'll only have to clean the boilers every other year rather than the annual $2,000 expense. The oil has a finite life to it. You know, the storage life on it is about 18 to 24 months, depending on the storage situations that you have. So when we looked at if we have to store oil, for instance, on a very cold day at Amity, we go through 700 gallons a day. A moderate winter day will burn 350 to 400 gallons. If you let oil stay stagnant, you know, it'll gum up just like diesel will. You know, your filters will kind of gum up. Your injectors that, you know, shoot it into the boilers, you know, will need to be cleaned more often. They recommend that you would exercise your boilers for a 24-hour period at least once a month. So you can imagine the extra cost that we would incur going through that many gallons at Amity. Knowing that it's got an 18 to 24 month life cycle to it, we would, in our school, we would need a large quantity on hand in case we needed to get to it. You know, we very tiny small percentage that you'd ever need to go to a dual fuel. I mean, like I said, the high pressure gas, I've worked in districts all around the country and lived in homes that have natural gas. I've never seen a gas outage. Even during the hurricane, I didn't have power at home, but I could take hot showers. It was nice. If you have old fuel, it sludges up and, you know, it grows bacteria naturally and breaks down. You have rust in your tanks, you have scale and stuff that builds up. After a 24-month period, all the fuel that you've got left in there, you're going to have to pay at today's wage rates are about $1.50 a gallon to get rid of it. And then you're going to have to put new fuel right back into it. In our case, our tank warranty is up in 2 years. We have it in our 5-year capital plan for those of you that look at our budget for the year 2013-14, and our budget figure to change that tank out was $150,000. So weighing all of those types of yearly fees, annual fees, oil that you're not going to use, we elected, and the assurity that gas is always going to be there. It's going to be at our building. It burns cleaner. We're going to have a lot less maintenance. We elected to not go with a dual fuel system.
Any questions?
It looks like they're right outside your door.
They are. I was with the fellows today marking our utilities on site, so they're ready to start digging up our property for four drops.
What are they telling you is when they'll be done?
The original date they were shooting for was August 1st. I think they've hit some ledge in a couple of places, and so instead of 650 feet a day, they told me they were getting, you know, 550 and stuff, so it might be the first week of August.
It's impressive.
Yes.
So what you know about the situation in Woodbridge, do you know of any reason why we shouldn't also go to all natural gas?
I don't know what the reason would be. I'm not familiar with the equipment, but if it's for backup, you know, my personal opinion is that it wouldn't be needed. If it's to save money, when the gas company did their initial presentations, as you probably remember, you know, it takes 7.14 gallons of fuel to make 1 million BTUs, and for large customers like we will be, the gas is going to be about $11 per million BTUs. Fuel would have to drop to $1.55 a gallon in order to make those numbers match at about a cost of $11 per million BTUs. I don't personally see that, but I'm not, you know, an oil forecaster. But.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Thank you, Jim.
Good. Thanks.
Nice to see you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Public Works Facility, and they have a report on the truck wash. Chris Sorensen is here, and Barry Robertson, and Mr. Kagan is here. Architect, so Chris, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you. Tonight I'm going to let Terry speak about the truck wash and as part of the project that we'd like to further study into that project there. And there's a lot of different angles. So Terry, do you want you speak or do you want to?
Sure.
Okay.
You received in your packages a letter from Chris to and she, as well as two different documents, a two-page DEP guidance for disposal of vehicle wash water, and a lengthy document that is the required general permit for discharge of vehicle maintenance wastewater. These are the documents that the committee, Public Works Building Committee, has been studying. As you may know, that we are carrying a line item in our proposed Public Works facility of $330,760 for a enclosure of a community truck wash facility, as charged by the Selectmen to the committee. And we have received, through efforts of the architect, from equipment of a low equipment to wash trucks, from a low of a $47,000 to a high of $241,000 for an automated truck wash. We are very confident that we will not have an automated truck wash at those prices. But that shows you the range of equipment that is possible, and the conclusion that the committee has come to is that it needs to further study the truck wash as it's been proposed. And we have tonight Jerry Kagan, one of the architects on the project. And Jerry, could you discuss with them some of the things that we've discovered?
Well, there are a variety of issues. I think the most significant issue that has to be addressed is the disposal of the water coming off of the truck wash. The building price is one thing, but the building has to be designed in order to accommodate the variety or various different types of equipment which will be chosen. So, and some of them have square footage repercussions. Some of them are 4 feet wide, some of them are 30 feet long. It all depends upon the piece of equipment and how it's going to affect the design of the truck wash bay. In that regard, we've looked at a couple of options. The first one we looked at was, okay, could we take the truck wash, get rid of the actual facility by itself, and look at moving it inside the building? And there are certain building code issues that come with that aren't as easy to solve right off the top of the bat as one would think. We also looked at taking and moving the truck wash bay into the middle of the garage, storage areas, and have some relationship to that. That also has some issues and concerns with it. Either way, we still have to deal with the disposal of water problems, the sizes of the tanks that have to be done, the location of those tanks, and the nature of the equipment that's going to be used. What I would like to recommend this evening, if I may, and go forward with it, is that we do all of the drawings just the way we are. We continue on in the way we are going. And we take the truck wash bay, and when we put the drawings out to bid, we bid it as either an add alternate or a deduct alternate. That way we have the period of time while we're doing the construction drawings for the garage, and we can do any investigations as to what all the options truly are with the truck wash. By pricing it, we don't have to necessarily spend the money. We have to go back to the building committee and then come back to the selectmen to say, here is the final bid and here's what it looks like. And that option allows us to have A, the time to study it, B, the time to evaluate whether or not we wish to spend the money on that particular truck wash and equipment to go with it, and C, what the effect would be of moving the truck wash into or out of the existing building. I would just like to be very clear that we have taken great pains to design a building which is quite simple, that is relatively modest in its design aspirations, and it's a building which is really built on a budget. And to that end, I feel very strongly that we'd like to take advantage of this current construction climate to meet that budget and to meet that goal. And by allowing us to continue with this, having the truck wash bay as an ad alternate, we can ferret out all of the issues that have to happen during the course of the next 4 to 5 or 6 months and come back to you with a hard number cost as to exactly what things are. And this committee and the other committee can make their decision what they wish to do.
And under that proposal, a final decision on that would be with the Board of Selectmen.
Absolutely, sir.
Yes.
Comes right back to the committee and to the Board of Selectmen, and you have all the numbers in front of you. You'll have the bids. You'll see it as an ad alternate or a deduct, however we decide to do it. And the committee can make, the Board of Selectmen and the committee can make their decision at that time. And we lose no time, and we gain the time that we need for studying the option.
And we still move forward with the building and everything that we have now. We still got designs going on, everything's moving forward, but we're not being limited to what we're doing.
The other advantage of that option, sir, is should we choose not to do it, the plans are drawn, you can build at another point in time, you can change it however you wish to do it, the location is fixed, everything is in the ground to do it one way or the other. The town doesn't have to duplicate any costs in the future.
Okay, any questions or comments from the Board of Selectmen?
Doesn't affect the public hearing at all.
No. Well, this will be a part of the presentation of the public hearing.
Right.
Well, we would still keep the same presentations we had the last time. The only sentence that I would add is we're going to continue studying the truck washing area to determine whether it should proceed or not proceed, and that decision will be up to the committee and the Board of Selectmen.
I guess the only thing the only thing I would add, going through what challenges the DEEP presents, I think makes me more firm in my resolve to have this, because what they're worried about, we don't want on our trucks.
Well, there are two sides to that issue. You're 100% correct, sir. One side is the cost of building it, and the other side is the cost of to the town of having trucks with this material on them that continually corrode. We extend the life of the truck for a small amount of money to take the water off site.
But we still have the oil water separator inside the garage.
Yes, sir. We still have the oil water separator inside the garage, and should the decision be to take one of the bays and put a hose there and do some minor truck washing, or we can do that, and we still have to provide, but we have now time to get all the processes and the approvals in place to do it, so we have the right, we can protect the environment by doing what we're contemplating doing in this scenario.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you Monday night at 7.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is Connecticut Rise, and we have Amanda Brown here from Connecticut Rise, who has a presentation to make about her program. And
yeah, absolutely. Well, you already got the rundown at the SCROG meeting, but does everyone have a sheet?
the members of the
Do you
board
have
of
sheets?
selectmen will have
Okay, yep, that's good. Okay. So just to give a rundown, CT Ride started back in October, and we were formerly RideWorks. What we've currently been doing is partnering up with towns and local businesses in the state of Connecticut to implement cleaner energy. We're working with the DOT closely to reduce car emissions and improve air quality by doing so. So I'm working with larger businesses, or ideally businesses with 100 or more employees, so we can implement telecommuting, preferred parking, promote for van pooling, carpooling, etc. Any alternate mode of transportation. So we're working heavily statewide, getting around, partnering up with towns and getting into businesses to educate the employees and to ultimately reduce car emissions as well. So in a nutshell, it's pretty simple, but it's also not at the same time, because it's a mindset that we have to change in the state of Connecticut. So that's the biggest challenge for us, is educating people on how to reduce their daily travels and how to increase like I said, productivity by stimulating. If you get in a carpool, we're trying to get people to carpool to get them stimulated before work, increase productivity throughout the companies. So that's kind of just an example of what we've been doing to get into businesses, and it saves money on gas, wear and tear in the vehicles, etc. So it's really a lot about education, and it's about changing the mindset in Connecticut. So the rail that's going from New Haven to Hartford to Springfield, that'll definitely help our project. But right now in the state of Connecticut, what we've been heavily focusing on is carpooling and I would say van pooling and telecommuting, because there's just really the development with commuting rails and buses. It's as everyone knows, it's a little bit underdeveloped in Connecticut. So right now we're working to do the best with what we have now. So.
Okay, so if someone wants further information on your Connecticut rides, how do they go about getting it?
Yeah, Gerald, you have my contact information, right?
Yes.
Okay, they can contact me directly. Do you want me to give me?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's at the bottom. But if they want to contact me directly, it'd be 860-930-9083, or email at amanda.brown@ctrides.com. So, any
Anyone have any
questions?
questions or comments?
Can we put this on our website?
Sure, definitely.
Yeah.
Sure.
I can send you a blurb, or unless.
That'd be good.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
do that for you.
That way.
Same with Jared, she can forward it to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Amanda.
No? All right. Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the Darling House Farm Stand, and there's a request to exempt from zoning regulations, and Aaron Taylor is here to give us a little report on that.
Hi.
Hi, Aaron, welcome to Woodbridge. I understand you're
Thank
the
you.
lieutenant there at the
Yep, I'm the new caretaker at the Darling House.
At the Darling House.
Yep, and along with the board of the Woodbridge and Amity Historical Society, we started to set up a small farming operation. At the moment, it's just kind of a large garden, but we're hoping to be doing more in the future. And we were hoping as well to have a small farm stand on site. It would probably, or this season, it would consist just of a table with a tent over it on weekends. We'd be selling vegetables. There's a parking lot, as you know, just adjacent to the house where a lot of people come and walk their dogs into West Rock. It would be right near there, and probably have a little sandwich board by the road, and that would be about it.
Okay, so your request tonight is to be exempted from the zoning regulations?
Yes.
For that stand? Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Correct. So, before we act on it, does anyone have any questions on this?
Is there any affiliation? Are you affiliated at all with the Massaro? Excuse me, with the Massaro farm?
The Darling House operation and Massaro Farm are not affiliated. I do happen to be the assistant farm manager of Massaro Farm, which is
That's his day job.
yeah, that's my day job. So this is a side project this year.
But you wouldn't truck your produce to Massaro Farm to move it there. You don't want to consolidate the district.
There haven't been any conversations with the boards, with the two boards, the CSA board or the farm board at Massaro, about that as a possibility. As Massaro Farm is now organic certified, my land is not organic certified. That's a long process.
That's a big deal.
So even if there were conversations in the future about consolidating, probably that would be a hurdle to get over. I'm not sure if that's something that the board of Massaro Farm is interested in. Also, Massaro Farm serves a CSA, as you know, primarily, and I'm interested in doing more direct sales.
And the proceeds from this would be to benefit the Historical Society or you?
No, sir. It's a business that I'm starting.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
As I'm facing the house, the parking lot is to the left, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So are we concerned at all about, are you going to have like a little sign, or how are people going to know about it? I'm just gonna, here's what I was going to, my
Yeah.
concern is, and then I'll let you answer. People will whip by there
Right.
pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So just from a safety point of view,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's a lot of speeding on that road.
This is
How
true.
do I know that? Okay.
Don't tell them.
But, shh, not tell them. But I do have some concern about people kind of slowing down and making that left and making that right, and how far back are you going to be from the driveway, and can you just address any of that? Or?
Yeah. Well, we would be behind the parking lot. Currently, we have a fenced-in area, maybe 20 feet to the east, which is away from the road.
Right.
From that parking
Okay,
lot.
good.
And the stand would be directly up against our fence. I was hoping to have just a small, like, sandwich board style sign on the road that said farm stand open when we're open, which will probably just be weekends.
And what are we growing?
A lot of things: tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, kale, greens. As for the people slowing down and making the turn, I can tell you, having now lived there for a week and a half, it's a very heavily trafficked area anyway. People are coming in. There are probably dozens of cars every day that come in and out of that area. So I don't envision this necessarily changing that very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I entertain a motion to approve, to exempt this farm stand on the Searle property, or on the Darling House property, described by Aaron Taylor. So I entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now at 7 o'clock. Public comments. Any members of the public have any comments? No. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the street light, Genic and Oak Lane. And Mr. Palmieri, I know, is here on that. And what I thought I would do before we hear from you, Mr. Palmieri, is to give a brief review, since this has been before us for a period of time. You have in your packet the minutes of the Police Commission acting as the traffic authority. They met on October 5, 2011, and they adopted a recommendation of the Chief of Police not to recommend the installation of a street light at Genic Lane and Oak Hill. And in those minutes, it's indicated that UI concurred in that decision. The cost to the town for such a street light would be $30 a month. Then, on December 14, 2011, the Board of Selectmen met, and Mr. Palmieri was here for that meeting, and he was appealing the decision of the Traffic Authority. And at that meeting, he presented statements from Rep. David Hutt and Sandra Colonna from Oak Hill concerning some criminal activity taking place at their homes, and they were in favor of having a street light installed. The matter was continued on December 14 to January 11, 2012, because Dr. Silverberg, who was opposed, was unable to attend that meeting. On December 19, the Board of Selectmen received an email from Dr. Silverberg setting forth his reasons in opposition. And then on January 2 of 2012, we received a letter from Mr. Palmieri requesting the board to install a street light. We had another meeting of the Board of Selectmen on January 11, 2012, and that was continued because Mr. Palmieri was out of state. So that brings us now to July 11th. Mr. Palmieri.
Mr. Sheehy, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Mrs. Shaw, and Attorney Weiner, good evening, and thank you very much for the opportunity to appear before you for a second time. I was about to recap essentially what you just presented.
Okay.
So you've stolen my thunder. However, I would like to make a couple of observations. there were only 4 homes that would be impacted by a street light at this corner. And we're talking about a street light, not a signal light or a blinking light, but a street light. I need to clarify that, and it'll be clear very shortly why I'm making that point. 3 of the homes have had crime incidents, as you pointed out. Hutt has had his car gas tank tampered with. Kelowna has had a break-in in his truck, and we had either an attempt to break in or a home invasion on the night that we returned from Florida. Fortunately, my son was in his bedroom watching TV, and we were at the other end of the house in the den when he heard somebody rustling around, slamming forcefully moving the doorknob. He flipped on the lights, they dashed down, and I immediately called the police. It was about 10:04 that evening. 2 officers appeared. They found no evidence, and it wasn't likely that they could in that situation, that happening at night. So of the 4 homes that are impacted here, 3 of us have had those incidents. We and David Hutt have installed our own high-intensity lighting covering our driveway. Those lights are on from dusk till dawn in both cases. That has helped the situation, but law enforcement for many years has always indicated that increased lighting deters crime and increases security. I contacted the UI company and spoke to their engineering people about the various types of lighting that might be involved here, and they suggested at that location a low-intensity 50-watt bulb would be adequate to light up that area. There's been some concern about the cost here, and if we're talking about $30 a month distributed among 3,000 families in Woodbridge, that's a minuscule amount. It's insignificant. It's pennies. I'd also would like to talk about the petition that was distributed by Bill Silberberg. He contacted 7 residents. In 12 cases, husband and wife signed the petition, as you might expect, and 1 single person signed, bringing that total to 13 people. I decided that I would contact at random 4 of those on the list to find out if they had some compelling reason why they were objecting to the presence of increased lighting and security. 2 of the 4 people that I contacted were misled into thinking that we were suggesting a blinker light or a signal light at that corner. Now, that was false information. It was misrepresentation. And they said had they known it was simply a street light, they would not have signed this petition. So they were misled. 2 other people, one of whom is sitting behind me, Jim Horowitz, indicated that he has always lived in the suburbs and prefers it dark. It's peculiar that Jim's backyard butts up into my property, and if you were to look at the lighting in the back of his house, you would think that he's getting free light from the UI company. I've already addressed the cost of $30 per month, so I don't need to go over that again. I think I've essentially covered all of the main points that I had listed here. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to.
So you did install some additional lighting on your property?
Yes, we did, along with the huts, yes. However, it does not reach the intersection. And some of the people, incidentally, on this list live about a quarter of a mile from this intersection, and yet they signed the petition. Another observation, Art Horowitz, who lives next to the Silberberg, I also called on him, one of the 4, and I asked Art why he was opposed to it. He said, I really don't know. He said, but Bill is a friend of mine. He came over, he asked me to sign it, so I signed it. So, any questions?
Yeah. Any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Conrad. How are you? I know the light on your driveway because I'm your neighbor, so I see that. Have you put a light on the front door? It's only on the driveway side, which is the Oak Hill side, correct?
It's on the driveway side on Oak Hill, yes. I've not put a,
But you haven't put any kind of new light?
well, I'd be fearful if I would have put a high-intensity light there, we'd get an objection from my neighbor across the street.
But you wouldn't be here tonight talking about it. I mean, you have a right to do what you want on your own property.
Yes, I
right?
do.
Okay, all right. But that's...
I don't want to commercialize my property.
No, I understand that. I understand that. But the lighting that's there is on the driveway side, which
Yes.
is the Oak Hill side.
Yes.
Is it Genic that's the other side? Genic?
Genic and Oak Hill
Oh, no,
is the
that's-
intersection.
So that side, you did not add any further lighting?
No.
Okay.
However, David Hutt's light is above his garage, and that does provide a little bit of light. It certainly covers his driveway, and some covers the intersection, but not a large amount.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I know some of your neighbors are here, and would they like to be heard? Okay. So, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. Jim Horowitz from 24 Oak Hill Lane, and apparently I'm supporting UI. I have one of my fears with all of this is turning this into a neighborhood feud. I've known the Palmieris since I've lived in the neighborhood, and I've been here for 21 years, and I have very high regard for Mr. Palmieri and his family, and he did in fact come over to my house, and we had a conversation, and it was a very pleasant conversation. And the upshot of the conversation is that we agreed to disagree on this issue. And while I do disagree with him, I just want to be clear that I disagreeing in a spirit of friendship and not in any kind of spirit of animus towards Mr. Palmieri or his family. The issue apparently has been studied. It's been studied by UI, and it's been studied by the police, who have found already that there's not a need for a streetlight there. The primary reason, as I understand it, for the streetlight is some supposed sense that an additional streetlight on this intersection will bring some further security to the area. Being the Googler and researcher that I am, I went and looked to see if there were some studies that would support that. And while it's true that lights in urban areas and in heavily trafficked areas do prevent crime, there's just no evidence, there's no consistent evidence to support the idea that a street light in a suburban location is something that's going to reduce crime. And in fact, there are some instances, even in more urban areas, where the installation of a single or a constellation of lights, all it does do in those kind of much more urban settings is it moves the crime to a different location. It doesn't eliminate the crime, it just moves the crime to a different location. So even if one were to assume that the crime at this particular intersection would be deterred, I think that what it would be doing is it would be sending the crime from this intersection down to Bob Bortles and my intersection, or to Susan Jacobs' intersection, or somebody else's intersection. And so the idea, I think, that lights are the thing that are going to stop the problem that's happening at this neighborhood is a little bit misguided. We have chosen, many of us, to live in Woodbridge because of the character of the area, and we like the settings, the tree-lined streets, and in fact the dark streets at night. Yes, I do turn my lights on my house at night, and that's my prerogative. And just as it's Mr. Palmieri's prerogative to turn the lights on at his house and to put lights on at his house, which apparently he has done, and which he has done with some success, and I applaud him for that. But the idea that the town should be getting involved in this project, where there is no demonstrable benefit for it, and it will invariably change the character of the neighborhood, I just think is something that the town shouldn't be engaged in. And again, with the greatest respect for Mr. Palmieri on many issues, I disagree with him on this one, and I hope that the Board of Selectmen will see likewise. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Horowitz? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Bob Wardle. I'm from 19 Oak Hill Lane. I basically have never met Mr. Palmieri. I know a couple of his family members, but I also hold no animosity towards him. My concern primarily with this issue is it's been addressed by the traffic board, by the police department, who have stated that there's no safety need for a street light at this intersection, which would lead me to the next step, that it's there for security purposes. As Jim has stated, I'm concerned about the town getting involved in providing security lighting for individual residences. If they're willing to put up a street light here, I think they should be prepared to put street lights up on every house in town, in front of every house in town, to better the security. And I don't think that's the character we're looking for in the town of Woodbridge. I think since last fall, when the issue started, I think Mr. Palmieri and his family have done a very good job of increasing the lighting on his driveway and on the front of his house. It's not a high-intensity light on the front of his house, but most of the time when I drive in and out at night, the light is on the driveway, and frequently the light's on the front of the house, which is a regular, like, incandescent light. And it certainly puts a good amount of light on his driveway, which is certainly to deter a security issue. Again, I'm concerned about the town getting involved in providing security lighting for private residents. You know, we do provide security lighting on our town facilities for security reasons, and as well we should spend our tax dollars on that. To get into the habit of approving security lighting for individual residences or even small clusters of residences, I think we're getting into an area that the town may not want to get into, and changing the overall appearance and character of the town and providing a massive amount of security lighting throughout the whole town.
Any questions, Mr. Ward? Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you.
And Dr. Silverberg?
Yes, thank you. Bill Silverberg, 31 Jenick Lane. Before I get started, Mr. Shee, do you have a copy of the statement that was signed by these number of people? Or does anyone here have a copy of it?
I don't.
I did submit it to you.
Yes, I think it's in the package.
Could someone please read the statement?
No.
I don't think we have it, Jerry.
Okay, because I believe, and I'm not sure, but I believe that the statement was signed stating that it was a street light and that no effort was made on my part to deceive people that it was anything other than a street light that was going in there. If other people assume something other than that, that's their assumption. I agree with Mr. Palmieri that security is important in this area and throughout the town for everyone. But we live in a rural or suburban area. The corner involved is a quiet, accident-free road, and it's not a main thoroughfare it's in a basically peaceful area. As the first selectman pointed out, you went through what I might want to call due process. You submitted it to the police department, you submitted it to the UI, and they rendered an opinion. I've lived on that same corner for 53 years. There's a quality of life here in Woodbridge which is very important. It deals with your home, it deals with the quality of life throughout the whole community, the educational services, the recreation departments, and so forth. And I think that is an important quality of life. Mr. Palmieri spoke about the lighting that has been put in there, and I appreciate very much that what he and Mr. Hutt have both put in what I call high-intensity lighting in both of their homes, which is on, as best I understand, most of the evenings and through the night as well. And Mr. Colonna, who is the other third party there, does have motion detectors on his property which will light up if people enter his property during the nighttime period. So they, the individual, have assumed the responsibility of security for their property. But let's think realistically how much security would come from a street light. A street light is a 50-watt bulb. The front doors, my front door, and probably Mr. Palmieri's front door, is probably about 150 feet from that street light. The back of our homes, in each case, border on woods. If the perpetrator, if the criminal wishes to come to the front door where the lights are, that's his, but it isn't going to give any security to the back of our homes. So the situation is one that I think the light gives very little increase in security to the area. And more importantly, whose responsibility is it to maintain the security of one's own premise? Is it the responsibility of the town of Woodbridge, or is it responsibility of the individual homeowner? I say it's the latter. And what precedent will this board be establishing if it overrules, and it has the right to do so, I understand that, both its police department and the recommendation of UI? Thank you for your time. If anyone has any questions, I will gladly answer them.
Do we have any questions of Dr. Silverwood? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. So what we're requested here tonight, I guess, in effect, is to overturn the decision of the Traffic Commission, Police Department, Police Commission sitting as a Traffic Commission in regard to a street light at Jennick and Oak Hill Lane. So, have any thoughts about that?
Well, I guess my thought about it is that that it would, for me personally anyway, the threshold to overturn the police commission sitting as the traffic commission would be higher than what has been presented. Certainly, it has the expertise, but I don't know that there's new evidence or sufficient evidence for me to second guess the police commission, traffic commission.
Any other comments?
I am sympathetic, but I don't see that this is that anything has dramatically changed from what our sentiment was, or at least my sentiment was a few months ago.
Okay. Okay, so I suppose we should take some action on it. So I would entertain a motion that we not overturn the decision of the Woodbridge Traffic Commission in relation to the installation of a street light at the intersection of Oak Hill Lane and Jennick.
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Director of Finance and Operations report. And first item is the monthly report.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I have here in front of you our year-end preliminary result. In the year-end preliminary result is a $288,000 surplus, which is an actual surplus of revenues over expenditures. And this would represent 11.6% of our 2012 budget and gives us a fund balance of about $5 million, of which $400,000 is reserved for next fiscal year. So I just wanted to make that clear. And if you look at the attached sheet, it shows you that it's broken down into revenues and expenditures. And it has the final budget and an actual and then the variance of each group. And the two large items which we've discussed in previous meetings is property taxes. And that's a lot of that is due to back tax collections from the Oak Lane parcel, which was early in the fiscal year. Some other large back taxes that have been collected. That's a good portion of that. Secondly, in intergovernmental, that's mostly that is the FEMA monies that were received by the town, which we've also discussed, in upwards of $275,000. So you'll see those are the two revenue highlights of the total revenues of actuals over a budget of $440,000. So that gives you a picture of revenue. On expenditures, there are a few departments that have some surpluses that I wanted to highlight. First is employee benefits. There's a transfer later on in your package to cover some increases which we discussed would be taking place from the health care savings. That gives a net benefit of $83,000 in that line item. Most of that is health care related in addition to what we use to transfer to cover wages. There is a surplus in recreation of about $37,000. due to the fact that there's wage surplus in wages, and that's offset by a shortfall in revenue. So as there's a shortfall in revenue, there's also a surplus in wages due to activity levels. There was some vacant turnover in some part-time positions in human services. That leaves a surplus of $27,000 projected in that line, that department. And similarly with the registrar, about $20,000 due to some less than anticipated activity levels. So those are some of your highlights in your departments. You'll see down at the bottom that gives you a total expenditure surplus is $252,000, which gives you $692,000 excess in revenues over expenditures. If everyone follows where that is 3/4 of the way down the page. Then we've designated $4,000 to from fund balance, so that gives you a $288,000 surplus.
400,000, not 4,000.
400,000, right, right.
Okay, any questions? Not, then we'll go on to funding requests. And the first funding is a line item transfer number 112-49, $1,729.15.
The town clerk has requested a transfer of $1,700, $1,729.15 to repair and restore 2 additional volumes of land records that were that she wanted to do in the fiscal year of 11-12. And was requesting funds for that purpose.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve line item transfer number 1112-49, $1,729.15.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is line item transfer number 1112-50, $141,835.
And this is a transfer that we discussed would cover the, as you recall, we had in last year's budget not budgeted for any possible increases because we were still in negotiations with their union contracts. So those funds were not in the departments, but rather were put into, we had some contingency funds available for that. When we realized that we would have a savings in healthcare as a result of negotiations, we decided that that would be an appropriate, and we've discussed this, appropriate place to transfer this to cover those wage increases. And so that's what this is, to identify by each department.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve line item transfer number 1112-50, $141,835.
Second.
No, move.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
He said it so well.
Oh, all right. We have a motion made and second. Any discussion?
I have a quick question, Tony.
Sure.
The surplus represented on your summary sheet reflects this.
Taken out.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is line item transfer number 1112-51, $6,500.
There were some equipment repairs that the fire department had to do in the prior fiscal year that were mostly related to some increased calls from the hurricane storms, and so this is to cover some miscellaneous repairs that were as a result of that from the grant funds that we received.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve line item transfer number 1112-51 in the amount of $6,500.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is funding request number 1112-52, $6,500.
The next two are related. One is a funding request, one is a transfer request for the same purpose.
So that's line item transfer number 1112-53, in the amount of $5,400.
Correct. And this is for hydrant repairs, and hydrants are regional water authority service charges. Sean can attest to they increased the fees after the budget process, correct? grant. Right. So we weren't aware that the fees were going to be increased, and so there's a shortfall in that account of, if you add the two together, it's about $12,000.
11,900.
Correct.
So I entertain a motion to approve funding request number 1112-52 in the amount of $6,500 and line item transfer number 1112-53 in the amount of $5,400.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is funding request number 1112-54 in the amount of $6,000.
This is in the Board of Selectmen department for legal fees. This is for outside counsel. We had a slight shortfall in that account due to some activity that was completed this year, and so this is to cover that slight shortfall.
This is from contingency.
Correct.
Okay, so I entertain a motion to approve funding request number 1112-54 in the amount of $6,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next are bid awards. The first of which is the Beecher North Traffic Circle flow improvements.
Okay, if you recall, we had a steep grant for $200,000. This was from several years ago, and we had retained Luce to do some parking lot and some transportation improvements in Beecher North, and those were completed. I believe we had a presentation on that.
You did,
right? And so we went out to bid for that, and we received 5 bids, and it's in your package results. And there was a base bid and an alternate, and the low bidder was, which was also reviewed by Luke's Associates, is complete construction.
They're at 16 Riverside Drive in Ansonia.
Right, and there's 150,933.75, which is the base bid, and then there's bid alternate number 1, which is for $41,282.50, and the alternate is for a drainage swale on the property of the school to help with some drainage issues.
And in the letter from Daron Dagan, who's the president of Luke's Consulting Engineers, they say complete construction company is the apparent low bidder with a combined bid of $192,216.25.
Correct.
They spoke with Guy DeMayo Jr., Vice President of Complete Construction, who understands the tight schedule necessary for this work and expressed confidence in their ability to finish the work by the deadline. And they say, in their estimation, Complete Construction Company is a competent contractor with extensive experience on state and municipal projects.
The timeline was a big issue in this project because it has to be done after the summer programs, but before the start of school, as it ties up most of the parking lot. So Dr. Stella is very involved along with his administration on this project and making sure that it's completed in a timely manner. Has been involved from the beginning, so there's a lot of coordination with this project.
I don't understand, what's the alternate? I don't understand that.
It is, I'll show you,
It's an alternate that's going to be made.
The alternate is, what happened was, because we have $200,000 and there's some design costs, we had to put the alternate in to see how much it would cost. We weren't sure it would be able to afford the alternate.
I see what you're saying.
Okay. And so the Board of Education actually has some funding in place for the alternate. Because you'll see that if you add the design costs along with what we have, it exceeds our grant funds.
Okay.
So to the extent it exceeds our grant funds, the Board of Education has funds to in a budget to pay for that.
I got it.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to award the bid to Complete Construction Company for the combined bid price, base bid and alternate of $192,216.25. I'll move that. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. And that work, I think, is going to start around August 1st?
Right, the week before, I believe.
Week before?
Yep.
Okay, the next item on the bid awards is for paving bids, and Warren Connors is here to bring us up to date on the paving bids.
There's one more funding request which relates to the fire truck repair, which I think we probably could do those at the same time, which would probably be helpful. We went out to bid for our traditional paving operations and had some bid results, which were returned on June 29th, which you'll have in front of you. There's also a new project called, which is a state program. You can use the state for funding also. And so I'll let Warren get into some of the differences between the programs and the cost difference between them. There is a memo here which outlines the costs in particular, but also the difference.
Good evening. As the memo indicates, we did have a bid in the typical manner that we did for all of our paving work. And the cost that came in, I plugged the numbers in to see where the actuarials would fall based on the numbers that were received. And that's the $603,888.50. There's also an alternate process if we utilize the state bid to have a vendor that's been awarded in this district the bid for applying the material. And I had them do a workup on the roads that were tentatively scheduled, and that estimate came in at $541,895.01. They do call this a vendor-in-place program. The low bidder on that happens to be Tilcon Industries, and at this point it looks like from a financial perspective that they are the low bidder. However, there are some things to consider when doing this. The reclamation work is covered, the basic preparation work done by our staff or the reclaiming is covered. But when you have a vendor in place, it's not like what we would do when we award a contract from a bid, where we try to have the timing coincide with as soon as the road work is ready to have the paver there. In this situation, we don't have any major hills or concern. There might be a time gap between when that work is finished and when the asphalt is actually applied, because under the state contract, it's wherever the crews may be. They're applying for multiple municipalities, doing state work, and so they will try to work to the best of their ability to accommodate us in a timely manner. But it should be known that there's a small window that could be pending until they come in and pave. I don't believe it's going to compromise. Other towns use this method. The roads will be prepared in basically in a passable manner as Ansonia Road is milled off. It is groove pavement. We do have some full depth reclamation, which means the roads will be a dirt base, but we usually harden those up so traffic, there won't be any dust problems. We'll treat those, and we'll keep them watered down. But there's an advantage from a cost perspective, which would allow us to possibly add some additional work to the program. So it would be my recommendation to take advantage of the cost difference and utilize Tilcon Industries to do the work. And there are 4 vendors that are on this district from the state perspective, and this would be the low end vendor.
Is Tilcon doing the Ansonia Road project?
Yes, they are.
So maybe the timing will be perfect by the time they get to Ansonia
Possibly.
Road.
Very possibly.
Just let the record note that there were no local bidders for this asphalt work. In other words, no Woodbridge-based bidders.
Right.
Right. Okay, so I'd entertain a motion then to award the paving bids as recommended by Mr. Connors to the VIP vendor-in-place DOT contract for $541,895.01.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Just again, so the record shows, at a savings of some $62,000.
If I may point out one additional fact in this, these numbers that were provided, oil prices fluctuate daily, and this is based on the time that the quote was given, so the prices could fluctuate up or down to some degree based on when you actually do the work. So the numbers that are given, and plus the quantities as I indicated in the memo, if at least for face value, the estimate that Tilcon did and the estimate that I prepared were within 15 ton of each other, so it's almost like one truckload of being accurate to the product that would be used. But obviously, if the road dimension, when you actually get in the field, because the road has some distortion to it, and you use a little bit more product or a little bit less product, those numbers can vary slightly.
Any other comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Warren.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is the Fire Department repair to engine 3, and Fire Chief Sean Rowland is here. And that involves a line item transfer number 1213-01 in the amount of $19,484.
Engine 3 is our it's our backup engine to our primary attack engine. So if engine 2 goes out, that would be the next engine we'd be taking in for structure fire. It's also the first truck out for a wire down call, carbon monoxide call, brush fires. It's really a multi-use truck for how we use it. We got an estimate. We had some body rot, and I have some pictures that I can show you of what the rot looked like prior to the work being done. The rot was so bad in the compartments, there were holes. We were worried about the equipment falling out of the compartments. So as you can see it, we had an estimate of, just bear with me, we had an estimate of $37.08 to fix the body rot. This is a steel body on this truck. When we buy fire trucks now, going ahead from 1990 and on, from engine 7 and on, we usually buy either a stainless steel body or we buy an aluminum body so we don't have rot issues like this. Back in the late 80s, 70s, aluminum wasn't big back then to make truck bodies and everything else. Now usually go custom, you go aluminum, so you don't have these issues. You have wet hose in the compartment, you have water, so you're dealing with a lot. So we felt it was with the fire commission that it was the best interest to get the rot repaired as soon as possible. We had the estimate. As they were going through and they started sandblasting, what you have to do is you have to strip the paint and you have to get back to solid steel where they can weld onto, so you're not welding back onto rot. As they were sandblasting, the compartment started, the rot started getting bigger and it starts growing, as you know, and before you know it, we're actually, the rot was a lot worse than what we thought, and the compartments need to be fixed. When we got the truck back from sandblasting, I have pictures of it. I only have one set, so you guys are gonna have to share it. We looked at if we were to replace the body, we would have to replace the tank of the truck, because the water tank on that truck, which holds 1,000 gallons, we'd have to replace it. It's a steel tank. We'd probably end up at that point going with a poly tank, which would be an added expense. Plus, we would have to redo the plumbing for the pump and everything on that truck. On top of that, a body of that magnitude would probably run us 80 to 100 grand new, maybe 120. Plus, we'd have the tank, a poly tank, which is probably another 6 or 8 grand. We'd have plumbing work done, so before we get done, we'd probably be $150,000 into the truck. And at that point, then you look and see, we'd be having a conversation: do we replace the truck since it's in 1989? Right now, I believe we can get at least another good 10 years out of the truck. The truck runs good. There's nothing really wrong with the truck. It's a 1989. We haven't had major issues with the truck. The truck runs great. It's great for tight spaces, so if we got a tight driveway or a tight road and we can't get the other apparatus down, this is a truck that we could actually get in there and do the work. So the truck is really effective, it is useful. In the process of doing that, we needed to replace everything, and the estimate came back at $23,000. $23,192.26. And then what we did is the emergency lighting that was on the trucks, the gaskets and the seals went. They from dry rotted from 1989 because they had to pull those off to be able to fix the rot. They can't be reused. We have to order new ones. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull money out of our budget to replace the lighting on that truck with newer lighting, and by going to LED and getting away from strobe lighting like is on the truck now, we're actually going to take big electrical load off of that truck, and we're actually going to be able to keep the truck a little longer, so we're not drawing as much. So when the lights are on and the equipment's running, now it's going to be more, have to hold the truck for a longer period of time. So that's where we stand.
Okay, any questions of Chief Wilhelm?
So you said the lights will be replaced by who?
The lights, we ordered the lights, we get a better deal if we order the lights through. It's not included in this, it's going to be coming out of our budget.
So it's going to come out of the fire
for our budget this year, out of the fire department's budget.
Okay.
All right, so I'd entertain a motion to approve line item transfer number 1213-01 in the amount of $19,484.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just don't have that paperwork.
It should be in front of you.
Source, I have.
It was new. It was from tonight.
Here.
Oh, thank you.
He's buried.
Right, no, I had that part. I had that in the packet, but I didn't have this form. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Okay. Next is the FEMA reimbursement for Hurricane Irene.
This is just an FYI. I just wanted to show you the funds that have come in, which is what we've been allocating for different projects. And it shows you the funds. If you look on it, the federal reimbursement is in several projects. One is public works, categories A and B, and other is public safety. So you'll see if you have together 262 is the large one. That's disaster assistance and public safety. Those are A and B. And then it shows you the various reimbursements.
The reimbursement was $262,996.30.
Right, and then there's a separate one for about another $17,000. So the total is about $275.
Okay.
Now, just to let you know, we're also applying for reimbursement for Hurricane, the Storm Alfred. That'll be in the new year, those funds, because we haven't received any notification. So stay tuned for that.
Okay. Next item is Historic Document Preservation Grant. Authorize the first selectman to execute a contract with the Connecticut State Library for this grant of $4,000 to restore documents in the town clerk's office. So I would make the following resolution that Edward Shee, first selectman, is empowered to execute and deliver in the name and on behalf of the town of Woodbridge a contract with the Connecticut State Library for an historic documents preservation grant. So I moved. Is that a second? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is the Personnel Committee report, contribution to benefits.
Right. There are two changes actually to the personnel handbook that were discussed this evening. The first is that the employee premium share is now at 12%.
That's for new employees.
New employees, and it would be. I would suggest that you have it retro back to April, which is when contracts were both approved for the union contracts. So that would be a 12% premium share for new hires after that date.
Okay. So I'd entertain a motion to act on the recommendation of the Personnel Committee that new hires as of April 1st, 2012 be required to contribute 12% to premium share.
Correct. That's correct.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is other.
The other is the to increase the waiver for health care premiums, which would also match the union contract, and that's what I forgot in my office. But it increases the current waiver by a few $100s for each coverage type. To I believe it increases to 800, 1,200, and 1,600. Something of that nature.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we take it up at our next meeting?
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Yep.
So then gets us on to the town council's report. Jerry?
Yeah, I just put in this case that's been pending for quite some time. The plaintiff has not done anything to move it along, except they've just filed this revised complaint in May. We had to file an answer. Again, the town really has no direct interest. It's basically a dispute among neighbors.
Is it for plowing of the road?
The maintenance of the road, of a common road, although the plaintiff in this case is obligated by an agreement, by an association agreement. They actually do not use the road, so they've stopped paying. And this action is to prevent the defendants, the adjoining owners of the road, from demanding money from the plaintiffs, and they seek an injunction and reimbursement for all the money they've paid over the years. We're involved because it was a subdivision that was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
And how many houses are on this?
Looks like it's about 8. I think about 8 houses.
And there's one person who says they don't use the road and they're not going to pay anymore.
Yeah, this one party, back Terry, claimed. Well, I think it's true because I did speak to Terry at the beginning of that their house does not abut on the road. They don't use it, and they feel they should not be obligated to pay.
But it's part of the
association. And they're part of the association. Yes.
Is that separate? Are there dues with the association, or is it just
the maintenance of the road? Just the maintenance of the road. The association. There's a claim in here that the association doesn't even exist anymore. It's out of business, but they still have a contribution among these adjoining property owners.
Okay.
That's all I said.
Okay.
The other thing, and again, any questions about that case?
You may have seen if you've driven down the Baldwin Road that there's a sign on the property there owned by the Hotchkiss at the intersection of Baldwin and Street.
Yeah.
And there's a sign up there by Pierce Commercial. So I asked Jerry to look into that to see what the status of that was. So we have a brief report.
So I did call the real estate agent. It's listed by Pierce Real Estate.
It's commercial.
It is commercial. And
that's what the sign says.
There's two pieces. Pierce Commercial. I talked to David Melillo, who's the listing agent, and he explained what I think we all know is that there's approximately 75 acres of that parcel is in the city of Derby. About 11 acres is in Woodbridge. The Woodbridge piece is obviously residential. The Derby piece is general commercial, general industrial. And I wanted to know whether they had any prospects and they had any plans for development. And he said this has been on the market for the last 4 years with no takers. They just decided to put the sign up, and as a result of putting the sign up, they've had a few calls, especially from a couple of people in Woodbridge, neighbors concerned about what was going on. Prior, there was a proposal.
Was there a road that was going to go through there
They were going to have an entrance in Woodbridge to a development which would essentially be over 55 living, assisted living facility. And it was a pretty large development that would primarily be in Derby, with the exception of the access road going through Woodbridge.
Now, did that project go off?
Or it's off. So the market turned. The developer actually it was a healthcare operator from Shelton that was proposing to buy it.
So the whole thing didn't happen. It's not just the road that
never happened, right? Okay. The developer backed out. Market changed. Decided not to do it. There was some opposition from Woodbridge, as you all may recall, and they just let it die. So they have no offers. They would consider any proposals. I suggested, what about the owners donating the Woodbridge piece to the town? he said that the owners really were not in a position to do that financially, and they wanted to wait to see if they have any offers and see how it plays out this time. But right now, nothing has happened.
Okay. Question? Did they say how much they're asking for?
No, and that's a good question. I didn't ask. I should have asked, but I didn't ask. I could find out next time.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is appointments. First of which is an appointment to the Regional Water Authority Policy Board for a term ending June 30, 2015. And I'd like to nominate Mark Levine of 8 Dillon Road, whose resume is in your packet, who is presently a member of the Regional Water Authority Policy Board. He has been since 2006. I believe he's been elected vice chair of that board pending approval of his nomination here tonight. And he served on a number of town boards and commissions, as you can see from his resume. So I would nominate him. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay. Next is a nomination to the Emergency Medical Services Council. It's recommended Lieutenant Jeff Lively be nominated. He's presently on that. Is that right, Jerry?
Yes, he is. It's really what we're doing is ratifying the recommendation by I don't have a memo from the police, but they don't. He's been on there for quite some time.
Okay. So I nominated Lieutenant Lively. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Now, the Quinnipiac Valley Health District, there's a position of alternate representative to the Board of Directors. If anyone has a nomination for that. That's an opening you can think about. The next item is the Woodbridge Clean Energy Initiative. John Gorham has been the chairman of that. He has resigned, although we actually received a letter of resignation from him.
Yes.
We have, okay.
Yes.
And he's done, yeoman-like service with that, but his time doesn't allow him to continue. I've talked to Sandy Stein, who is currently a member of that task force, and she's agreed to become the chair of that. And we are in the process of contacting current members. And you'll, is this memo in the packet? And let me see.
No, I don't believe that memo is in it.
Without getting into names, there's one member who is willing to continue. So what I'd like to do is to have the Board of Selectmen approve Sandy Stein as the chair, and then to see if we can open this up for people who want to serve. And
Are we looking for one more person? Or?
well, I think we're going to be looking for several people.
Several people.
But we'll circulate that. We'll finalize those people who want to continue. Okay, so I entertain a motion to nominate Sandy Stein as the chair.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is the tree warden for a term ending June 30, 2013, and Warren Carnes is presently the tree warden, so I would nominate him.
Second.
Okay. And a second, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is the deputy tree warden for a term ending June 30, 2013. That currently is Adam Parsons, and I would nominate him again for that position.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, we have the town clerk's report. You have that in your packet, and I'd entertain a motion to acknowledge receipt of that report.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, we have minutes. The first of which is our November 9, 2011 meeting of the Board of Selectmen. So I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next are our minutes of the joint meeting of the Boards of Selectmen and Finance for June 6, 2012. And I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next are the minutes of our regular meeting of June 13, 2012. I entertain a motion to approve those minutes. I'll move that. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. And finally, the minutes of the public hearing on the 2012 Neighborhood Assistance Act, which was held on June 13, 2012. I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is the first Selectmen's report. Since we last met, I, on June 14, attended the annual meeting of the Jewish Federation. Don Hendel is the new president, and an award, community award was given to Father James Manship from the parish in East Haven. I attended an Eagle Scout ceremony on June 17 at the Church of the Assumption, where Sale Belinsky and Daniel Ricaldi became Eagle Scouts, as well as Alexander Slamsky, Edward Walsh, and Michael Wenke. On June 22nd, I attended the Quinnipiac Bridge ribbon cutting. Governor Malloy was there, Senator Blumenthal, Rosa DeLauro, Mayor Stefano, a number of area mayors and first selectmen. We've been over the bridge. It's very impressive, even though it's only half complete. So traffic is flowing pretty smoothly there. In your packet, or I don't know if it's in the packet or not, but I'll just bring you up to date that the city of Derby has agreed to an animal control, for Woodbridge to provide animal control services for up through June 30 of 2013, paying us $3,500 a month. I attended the open house, if you will, at the Country Club of Woodbridge, where the tent was in operation, and Susan Jacobs was there. It was pretty well attended. The tent looks very good, so they're looking forward. We're using that for outings, etc.
What was the movie?
The movie I didn't see.
I didn't stay with the movie either, but I believe it was Night at the Museum. Very family friendly.
And just to remind you that on Monday, July 16th, there will be a special town meeting at the center at 7 p.m. in regard to approving a bond issue for the new Public Works facility. And then, as you know, as you've seen, the Southern Connecticut Gas Company is in the process of installing gas lines on Beecher Road School and then on Newton Road. There's been some concern about dust raised from that operation. Tony and I have been in contact with representatives of the Southern Connecticut Gas Company, and we brought that to their attention, and they will be addressing that issue in the next few days. And we heard from Jim Sasha that they anticipate completion of this project probably the first week in August. Okay, with that, Joe?
I'm all set, sir.
Okay. Tom?
All set.
Lawrence?
The Woodbridge Board of Education met and it was a year-end meeting. They have a new principal now as of July 1st. That was June, and so they acknowledged Carol Bacquari's service, and now they are beginning the transition to this new one principal model. But I had to leave that meeting before long because the Recreation Commission met on the same night, and I wanted to be there for that. In part because it was still ahead of our joint meeting to talk about the Country Club of Woodbridge, and I wanted to be in on that discussion. As far as the Recreation Commission and Recreation Department is concerned, they're in their busy season now with the rec camp in full swing, and in addition to the rec camp, which runs Monday through Friday, they are running these concerts here now on Tuesday nights. The first two concerts have been very well attended, and the weather has been terrific. So the Recreation Department is humming along nicely. As far as that discussion about the Country Club of Woodbridge, I guess the most notable part of it was discussion, and there was no consensus and there was no vote or decision made, but there was some discussion among recreation commissioners of how to, or the potential for new athletic fields on that property somehow, some way. since, in fact, that same evening, there was another field request, and they were just able to shoehorn this organization in on, for 4 hours on a Saturday and 2 hours on a Sunday or something. They, at every turn, the idea that there is a shortage of athletic fields, I guess, is underscored. And so then the conversation immediately turned to this parcel at the Country Club of Woodbridge. But again, no suggestion or vote or recommendation, just discussion at this point.
Susan?
Library Commission met the 9th, just 2 nights ago, at the Country Club of Woodbridge in an effort to sort of show municipal support for the effort at the golf course. I thought that was very nice. They met in the grill room, and iced tea was served. They are getting bids for the carpet work that's going to be done. You might remember that a couple of liaison reports ago I mentioned that our library director had been nominated to serve a leadership position in Lions, which is the state library organization. He, in fact, has been elected to be vice president, and that will then lead to the presidency. So it's a nice feather in his cap as well as our community. And the biggest question was one I couldn't answer, and that is when the library is hooked up to the gas lines, will they have to close? And if so, they need to think about that and how that gets scheduled in for their purposes. And I said I would talk to you.
I don't believe they have to close. No.
Really?
We'll check on that.
We'll check on it though.
I do not believe they won't have to close, to answer your question.
Okay, well, maybe you and Todd could have a conversation about that.
Certainly. Okay.
That's it.
Good. Anything else? If not, I guess our next meeting is Wednesday, August 8th. And so I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. That's it.
Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.